Alright, you freaks, weirdos, nonsense talkers, truth seekers, world destroyers, mind blowers. Welcome to another episode of the Paradise Paradox. So today, or the other week, I had the opportunity to interview my friend l-dixon, and he told me a story about his life going from a believer in religion to an atheist or a hardcore skeptic, and now taking a more middle path, or wondering exactly what's going on in the world and open to new kinds of evidence, making his way along that path because of the various synchronicities and weird shit that was going on in his life. So you can check out l-dixon's music on YouTube. Just search for l-dixon, and of course you can check out Never Get Busted. Leandrew does a lot of work with the Never Get Busted crew with Barry Cooper. And remember, you can jump onto the Paradise Paradox, look through our previous episodes, jump on theparadiseparadox.com/143. So you can check the show notes to this episode, get some relevant links, interesting stuff. You can also go on donate.theparadiseparadox.com if you're feeling generous. We hope you enjoy the show. And if you do, we implore you, please give us a few beans dropped off your plate, off the edge of the table, into our awaiting dog mouths, begging before you, please, master, can I have some more? Donate.theparadiseparadox.com. Suggest a donation, $1 per episode that you like, but feel free to be generous. And remember, you can follow us on Steemit, steemit.com/@paradise-paradox, and I'm on there too, steemit.com/@CHURDTZU, Churdzu. So remember that. Jump on there. Steemit is a platform where you can get paid for posting, so it's good if you're a podcaster, artist, writer, musician, genius whom the world has not yet recognized as so. So, thanks for tuning in, and let's get into it. So I got here my buddy, Mr. L-Dixon, LD Leandrew. man of
many names.
Many talents.
Thank you, man.
So I wanted to, I mean, there's so much stuff that we could talk about. Like, we could probably have an interview going on for days if we wanted to, because you're
be all over the place.
Yeah. So I wanted to narrow it down, and maybe we'd talk about some stories you've been telling me about how for years you were an atheist, and then things started to click into place, and you thought maybe there's something else going on in the world. So
yeah, for sure, man. Well, yeah, I guess it kind of started when I was like 12 years old. I just kind of, I'm not sure, like I just had this epiphany that, wait a second, these stories don't entirely make the most sense. You know, like as far as the organized religion goes and all that, most of my family was Jehovah's Witnesses. But yeah, you know, I would ask questions at the church, and like, you know, to the adults around me, like, hey, well, you know, what would God say about aliens? And just all these like questions that they were not prepared to, like, you know, grapple with. So, in that process, I kind of like, I had my own little, like, you know, awakening to the bullshit of religion. And so, that kind of started then. And, I just grew more and more, like, militant atheist as I got, like, older and more philosophical, and like looking, you know, kind of became obsessed with the topic. And I was just one of those, like, you know, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris type people. That's like, religion is like the scourge of the earth, and and you know, still to this day believe it. There's a lot of bad things about it, but definitely you know, my awakening to a more spiritual side of things is definitely like, I guess kind of tamed all that, evened out a little bit. I found a balance, yeah. So part of what created that process for me was around the time I was 21, I started experimenting with psychedelics. And it was funny too, because going into college, I was actually like a straight edge kid. Like I didn't drink alcohol, nothing. I could have been a DARE spokesperson. Actually, in Virginia Tech, I started up a student organization called SOS Squares, like Students for Student Organization for Sober Socializing. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, at the time, you're in college, like I'm a freshman and everything, and all everybody wants to do every single weekend is go party and drink and everything. So I'm like, okay, maybe we should get some people together to, do something other than that.
Yeah.
And after a while, I started realizing, wait a second. These aren't the coolest people that I'm attracted. And
But they were all like the church people.
Yeah, they were the church people. Exactly. Exactly. So you have me. It's still at this time I'm like atheist, and I start this organization for sober socializing. And I'm attracting all these Christians. I'm like, wait a second. So that kind of like indirectly kind of led to me starting to drink a little bit, and then drinking turned into smoking weed a little bit.
Christianity turned into drink.
Yeah. Right. So, kind of funny how that happened. But yeah, started smoking weed a little bit, and then, they call weed a gateway drug. But I think the only way weed is a gateway drug is that when you smoke weed, you realize that everything they've told you about drugs is bullshit.
Yeah.
So that kind of started the process. I'm like, oh, wait a second. Well, the weed is this awesome. Like, what about mushrooms? And started experimenting with mushrooms and acid, and that definitely helps broaden my horizons and my perspective a little bit, and kind of like shake me off that standard Newtonian, like materialist, the objectivist view of the world sort of thing, where like everything that exists is just like what our scientific process currently understands in the physical matter. Yeah, and anything beyond that is just like, it's religion. It's bullshit. It's quackery.
Right.
But yeah, obviously you start taking psychedelics a little bit, and it's gonna broaden your horizons, whether you end up as a more spiritual person or not. So anyway, it did. So for me, it was like, it at least showed me that there's more to reality than we currently understand, and especially when you realize like how much of reality is your own subjective perception of it, and how malleable that perception is. Like once you start taking psychedelics, you're like, whoa, this is a different world I'm perceiving right now. So there was that, and then there was experience, like synchronistic experiences.
Yeah. Hang on. Can I ask you something before we move on to that? So I think that's I guess some people, if they haven't tried psychedelic drugs, then they might be like, they might question that and say, okay, so you took psychedelic drugs and you saw something that wasn't real, and that made you change your perspective on reality. But I think there might be two separate things at play there. One, which is like the psychedelic drugs allow you to release your preconceptions, like shed off some previous ideas, or like ego death or something like that. Yeah. And then the other thing is, the things that you do see, then they do make you think, well, hang on, if like you were saying, if this is how my perception is, what else is out there?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I was going to ask you a question, but no.
Well, I mean, basically, adding to what you're saying is that psychedelic research is actually showing now that what psychedelics do is they actually turn off certain filters in our brain. So it's not that the psychedelic is like, adding all these experiences in your mind and like it's stimulating certain things, and it's more that, again, it's turning off certain filters. There's whatever people might call an objective reality. There's some sort of stimuli that we're clearly all experiencing, right? Yeah. And whatever that is, we all perceive it in a subjective way. And when your subjective perception is stretched out by means of psychedelics or any sort of mystical experience, a lot of times people that are really deep into meditation report the same sort of experiences where all of a sudden they feel like connected with all of humanity or all of life, and they can have these ego death sort of experiences where now what you're perceiving is completely outside of your normal reality tunnels, as like Robert Anton Wilson would call them. There's a lot of dimensions to it for sure. There's we're in some huge fucking system of reality, and we're only perceiving a tiny slice of it. And the best way to experience more of that is to, I guess, try to step away from the standard standard model of reality that you experience.
Right. It's kind of like you have the school and religion and government or whatever, and they hand you like this cookie cutter, like this McDonald's version of reality or McDonald's model of the world, and you're like, actually, I think I'll do some cooking. I cook my own mushroom burger or whatever.
Exactly, and it's like the same process as a psychedelic, as far as just, again, stepping out of context, just pulling yourself out of that context. I mean, they realize that traveling affects your mind in a lot of the same ways, because you're living your life and you're on this one little path, and you have this narrow. Our daily human lives are like a tiny little slice of what the entire human experience is, right? Based on our own culture and our own life experience and all that. So when you remove yourself from that, it's a mind-expanding experience to realize that, wait a second, there's people over here that do things a lot differently in even the most like basic aspects of life, So psychedelics are the same way, it takes you out of your day-to-day context and just shows you a different way of thinking and perceiving,
I remember the first time I went to Colombia, and I was cooking with this young lady, and she picked up a lime and like with no warning just dropped it right to the floor and started rolling it with her shoe, and I was like, what the fuck? This is complete nonsense what you do. Of course, if Richie explained that like the lime was underripe, so she needed to soften it up to get the juice out. It made perfect sense. But I would never ever think of doing that.
I've never heard of that myself.
Like what you're saying, you break out of the habits and see things in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So it's pretty crazy, and I think that's one of the greatest benefits we can take from psychedelics for sure. But it's not isolated to psychedelics. That's just taking ourselves out of any context in life, I always like the quote: "A mind expanded to the size of a new idea can never return to its original dimensions."
Right. It's like an Oscar fish in a certain size tank. It'll only grow to that size, but
exactly, you put it in a bigger tank and it grows.
Yeah. I think about that too. I like to say that I forget the way I wrote it, but it's something like you have these ideas. This new idea enters your mind, and it pushes the boundaries of your mind just this little bit out, and then you can see just a little bit further, and then you can see to the next idea, which pushes your mind.
It all starts to connect and everything and become stronger. And Well, one of the cool things you can take from that, I feel like is super important that I don't think most people have the same perspective, is that a lot of the times there's the whole of human understanding that we currently have. And, there's a lot of experiences and things that happen on the fringes of that may or may not be legit phenomenon, And a lot of times when considering these things, people that are more closed-minded might not even want to, if you talk about something like, I'm not really a flat earther myself. For example, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
But just when you're encountering ideas like that are outside of your own paradigm, don't immediately take it as like, okay, I'm like judging this as it comes in sort of thing, right? Like, I'm not even going to listen to that because, I know it's not true. And well, even ideas that may not be true can help expand your horizons of what you might think is possible, or it could even it could be creative fuel, it could teach you to think about
science
fiction, or it could connect to something else that is legit, you know?
Like Edward de Bono, he calls that type of idea a PO. I forget what that stands for. It's like a propositional something or other. Anyway, it's like you propose this idea, and the idea might have nothing to do with reality, but maybe it'll get you to another idea.
It's like a thought experiment. That's one of the most common tools in philosophy is thought experiments. We know, like, okay, this scenario is obviously bullshit, but it's forcing us to consider this idea and, like, broaden our perspectives using it, that's cool stuff.
Yep. So about the synchronicity, tell us about that.
Synchronicities. For those that aren't really familiar with synchronicity, it's just like a coincidence that seems to have meaning. And a lot of times they might relate to, something that is going on in your internal world, like you're thinking about something, and then it just pops up in your reality that day.
Jung gives the example of, like, you're in your bed dreaming about a scarab beetle, and then you wake up and see a big scarab beetle fly right through your window. And, so those things have no obvious causal relation, but you can't really deny that they're connected. When people say that's a coincidence, you play down that connection. But when you say synchronicity, it's like, there's something.
You're acknowledging that there's a meaning between that connection, and it's not just a random coincidence. So I had a lot of experience like that. Over the course of my life, but more so when I started experimenting with psychedelics and started, like, keeping my mind open to those sort of things. I mean, some of the stuff was just like, like I mentioned to you, the one experience I had when me and a couple of my buddies were having a mushroom experience, and we're looking at this poster, and we're realizing that, like, it starts to look like it has eyes. It's like a really trippy poster. It has, like, wizards and turtles, and it's, something you probably find in a head shop. So it's obviously meant to play on things like that. But we're looking at it like, wow, this thing looks like it has eyes. And then immediately the next song that came on Pandora was like, sometimes it feels like somebody's watching me. Like, what? Like, how does that happen? How does that happen? And obviously it's not just like, a few of these experiences. It's like, stuff like that happening so commonly. I had to acknowledge it as a phenomenon, And so as I'm realizing this in my own life that, I used to be this straight edge atheist character, and like now with experimenting with psychedelics and witnessing synchronicities, I'm now, I don't know, I'm still some sort of agnostic, but I highly and strongly believe that there is something greater going on than we currently understand. And so it just feels like I had become a different person in a way, they're like completely diametrically opposed to where I was before, and the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail, I'm not sure if you can see it up there, but it represents like rebirth and cycles, and the snake is eating his own tail, and to me that kind of represented the fact that, like, I had basically come around intellectually to start to, like, devour my old ideas. The old picture of reality that I had now is like, okay, well, that's bullshit. That's almost as much of a religion as the religions I was so opposed to, So I had made the decision to actually go and get these tattoos, the Ouroboros tattoos. And that day, I wanted to go get Carl Jung's book, Synchronicity, because, he's the one that coined the term, and I just thought it'd be a cool thing to read. So went to Barnes & Noble, and I pick up the book, and I noticed that he has his book, man and his symbols like right next to it. So, I picked that up and I go to flip it open to a random page, completely random page in the middle of the book, and it's the fucking Ouroboros. On the page, it's the Ouroboros. I have the synchronicity book in my left hand. And that day, I'm going to get these tattoos, and I flip open this book randomly, and it's the Ouroboros. It was just a mind fuck that, I couldn't deny. Yeah, it's just one of those things where I know my own little personal experiences and, synchronicities, they aren't really a testament to the larger reality. They're not proof for anything, but it was a sense of internal validation that okay, there's something more going on that I want to dive into and try to figure out and understand as much as I can. So anyway, later that day, I go to get the tattoo. I still have the books in my car, but the tattoo artist is just kind of starting. He's kind of doing the head and all that. And he randomly mentions to me that, hey, you know what? I'd rather just be running through the forest and tripping on mushrooms. And at the time, I had a pretty large supply of mushrooms. So I'm like, well, you're talking to the right person. We can make this happen. And I ended up paying for my tattoos with mushrooms. On the day I grabbed the synchronicity book and opened up the page, and the Ouroboros is this is mind fuck. It was a mind fuck. Yeah, exactly. I'm still not sure how to process those experiences, but it's definitely one of my great intellectual curiosities. Yeah.
What you were talking about with your change from being religious and then turning around to become atheist, and then turning it around again to become something different, or something more balanced or more open-minded. That's like what our buddy Chris was talking about yesterday with the Hegelian dialectic. So he used the terms thesis, antithesis,
synthesis.
And synthesis. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's like the same thing. So do you feel? Let's see.
Yeah. I never thought about it like that, but you're right. It is.
Yeah. That's funny. Since you mentioned it yesterday, I've started all of these instances of it. Started bubbling.
I mean, just so people understand what we're talking about, this is basically a pattern of the way things come to fruition, where you'll have the original thesis, some sort of event or some cultural
predominant
idea. And it'll be dominant for a while until it starts to come into contact with this antithesis.
Yeah, so there's a strong reaction.
There's a strong reaction to it. Yeah. And so from there, they'll duke it out for a while, and then it'll come around to the synthesis, which is essentially the balance between the two, that it kind of achieves the new homeostasis.
Yeah. Or it's the good parts of both of them become integrated into this greater truth.
Right.
Yeah. So what would you say are what were the important truths or the important things that you learned from the religious side and the atheist side?
Oh, that's a good question. So definitely from the atheist side, it was just still adhering to the scientific mindset of not accepting anything as absolute truth until we can, basically prove it in some way, shape, or form. I look at a lot of things like the whole world and the universe and the way things came to be is like a crime scene, right? And to me, science represents the forensics team. Yep. They're the ones getting there and actually in the scene, breaking things apart and trying to actually use scientific method to determine objectively what may have happened, right? But we can't just rely on the forensics. We have eyewitnesses as well. And so to me, eyewitnesses are they're the spiritual belief systems. These are people that have had some sort of experience with the world that may go beyond what our forensic method can currently understand, right? This is a goofy little way I like to look at it, but yeah.
I think that's a good analogy. Yeah. So it's kind of I guess a little alarming to me that, say, if you're a very scientific or atheistic person, you might have a religious experience, and you would be like,
they would cast it out.
That's never happened.
Exactly.
Or you'd have to rationalize it or say it's just neurons firing and there's no meaning behind it.
Exactly. I mean, you can imagine some bizarre court scenarios where, like, the DNA might say one thing, maybe somebody was framed or something like that, but you have several eyewitnesses that say, oh, no, it wasn't that person. We saw this guy doing it, Yeah. And if you only take the forensics as truth, then you miss out on part of the story, and you can just as easily be duped as the person that only has the eyewitness report, and we know how foggy and subjective that can be. So I feel like the unison of both is the better way to find, to like, what's the word? Triangulate upon truth.
Yeah, trying to nail it down.
Trying to nail it down, yeah.
And draw our conclusions. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? No, well, lost it. My buddy Luke told me a story once about this woman. I think she was Catholic, and one day she started having this intense, like a peak experience or a religious experience, and she, I guess, because of her Catholic indoctrination or education, whatever you want to call it. She like got on her knees and she started saying, I'm not worthy, which is just, to me, it seemed so bizarre because, you're having that experience, so of course you're worthy of it. You wouldn't be having it if you weren't. That, it's for you. It's not for anybody else.
Right. The whole point.
Yeah, but it's a shame because, these when you have these beautiful experiences, you can find ways to shut them out.
Oh, but, just write them off. Write them off. Like I've had, experiences as a kid that, when I say a kid, I mean like after 12, when I'm already considering myself an atheist. And I would have some random experiences that I would just kind of push it to the side. Like, I know this just happened, but I can't even believe it myself. Sort of thing. Like, definitely have some crazy deja vu experiences and all that sort of stuff. And, it's just easy to try to box those things and push them to the side. Like, I'm not even going to deal with that. It kind of is outside of the circle of things that I'm told is reality. So I'm not even going to consider it.
I like to say that I like to use this really broad definition of the word evidence, and I like to say evidence is anything that we can use to determine the truth of a proposition. So it could very well be our personal experience, and the thing is, and another idea I had is scientists are precluded from experiencing a miracle, or like you're saying, like they box it off to the side. If it's not repeatable, then exactly. you have to just pretend it didn't happen, or say, well, I have no idea. Even if you saw it with your very own eyes, you have to pretend it didn't happen, not necessarily outright reject it, but you can't treat it seriously.
Incorporate it into your worldview in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of weird, but I mean, to call yourself a scientist, dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge and expanding the body of information, but at the same time, you kind of have to reject certain things and pretend they didn't happen or ignore them or whatever. Which it seems very contradictory.
Yeah, it's very anti-scientific, actually. I mean, if you think about the whole of scientific progress, it usually comes from some sort of experience, some sort of personal encountering with a natural phenomenon, right?
Yep.
And then through, human beings, we encountered phenomenon like fucking tornadoes. And when we're like, at one point we might have thought it was the finger of God and that, God is trying to punish us because we just didn't have a better explanation for it, right? But we had this personal experience of this thing, like we know this is a real fucking phenomenon. Like there are tornadoes, we've seen them. And it took a long time between having that experience of encountering tornadoes to actually developing the scientific method, and then having the scientific method progress enough to where we can apply it to weather and fully understand what's going on when we see a tornado. And so I feel like the vast majority of scientific progress is based on just that. You have our scope of current understanding, and then you have things that occur outside of that. And at first we aren't sure how to intellectually deal with that. So a lot of times we'll just make up stories. So that's how religion started in the first place. And then from there, the goal of science should be to expand the scope of understanding to incorporate or better understand these experiences that happen on the fringes. And traditionally that's been the intention, but it definitely seems like we've kind of lost touch with that. Like we feel like we've hit this point where our science is so good that we have the complete map of how things work in the physical world is what people act like. That's not at all the truth.
But I think we get this skewed perspective on the past because we look back at, if we look at someone like Isaac Newton, I mean, I'm pretty sure people saw him as just absolutely wacko at the time. But looking back, we're like, that guy came up with a lot of cool ideas that are useful. So, we get this idea that visionaries are accepted when we look at history. But today, if someone came along like that with completely different ideas, we'd probably be like, no, you're off the...
Exactly. And most people understand that, we see it in history, we see it in movies all the time, when something happens and there's all the skeptics, oh no, this can't be possible, oh, you're a loony, and all that, and then it comes true, or the person does the thing, they create the airplane or the electric car company that outsells all the gas sedans and shit like that. Things that people said, this is not possible. To me, it seems silly at this point in humanity to say anything is impossible for us to achieve.
Right.
It's not impossible. It's just a matter of time. By this point, I think we'll come to understand most things that are currently seem unfathomable, ununderstandable, and we will be able to achieve most things that seem fucking impossible to us. It's just all a matter of time. So when that time comes, what side of history do people want to be on? Do they want to be the ones oh no, that's not possible, that's bullshit, let's not even consider this scientific potential, or do you want to consider it, look into it and
even
investigate it?
Even though maybe 90% of those ideas that you investigate, you're like, well, okay, I looked at it, and it's bullshit.
At it, it's bullshit. Exactly.
But there'll be that 1%, 10%.
Exactly, 1 to 10% that you'll get that you wouldn't have got if you just stayed in the bubble.
Yeah. Little by little.
Exactly.
Expand that bubble.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, I think that's a great note to finish on there.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Did you have any final thoughts or?
No, I think we hit on some fun stuff.
Do you have any projects you want to promote?
Not in particular. I mean, if you're interested in music with a message, you can check out my site at l-dixon.com. That's an actual hyphen. That's where all my music goes. I try to do stuff with substance, talk about real world things. It's definitely revolutionary in nature. Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in psychedelics and, perhaps having an ayahuasca experience, you can hit us at nevergetbusted.com. I'm part of that project as well. And, for anybody that might be listening that is anarchist in nature, come to Anarchapulco.
Yep, 2017 in February.
But yeah, February 25th. It's a fun event. Yeah, connect with like minds and learn more about how we can actually change the world and make it better and less corrupted.
Thanks for listening. Remember, you can check out Leandrew's music on YouTube. Just search for l-dixon, and you can check out his work with the Never Get Busted crew. Check out, just go on to Facebook and you can follow them on there, Never Get Busted. And remember, you can jump on to Steemit, steemit.com. That's steemit.com/@paradise-paradox to follow us. Press upvote on our post because that helps us out a lot. Doesn't take a lot of effort on your part, but it's easy to do, and it helps us accumulate a little bit of cash money so we can keep improving our project here and sustain ourselves with energy credits of protein that are sent down as divine manna from the internetosphere. So jump onto there. Also, if you feel like giving us a tip, you can jump onto donate.theparadiseparadox.com. We appreciate it. We love it when we see those little bits, those Satoshis coming in, or those PayPal transactions coming into our account. We appreciate it so much. So thanks so much for all of the people donating there. Thanks to Leandrew for letting me interview him, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.